The human who uses this note can go to neither heaven nor hell. All humans, without exception, eventually die. Yeah, tell that to this guy. Or this guy. Or this guy. Jokes aside, what I just read out to you are a few of the rules of the Death Note in the manga and anime of the same name. But if you clicked on this video, I assume you already knew that. These rules mean that the protagonist, Light Yagami, sacrifices his chance of going to an afterlife in the name of changing the world. Well, that hasn't stopped a variety of official external media of arguable canonicity from giving our beloved serial killer's story some sort of continuation. And so that's what this video will be about, going over all the official media there is that goes over what happened to Light Yagami after his defeat at the end of Death Note. Firstly, Nothingness, or as the rules of the Death Note refers to it, Mu. This is absolutely the interpretation intended to be considered canon, as it was the explanation created and presented in the original manga. It adds an incredible level of tension to the events of the series by establishing that there is an afterlife in this universe, but then immediately telling us that Light will be unable to go there due to his use of the notebook. Just elevates the stakes by picking at the very human fear of not wanting to die in a pretty compelling way. A list of Death Note users, and by extension people who go to Mu, are as follows. Light Yagami, obviously. Ray Penba for writing the FBI agents' names on a list for Kira, not knowing it was a page from the Death Note. Kiyosuke Higuchi. L. Teru Mikami. Kiyomi Takeda, and then it is implied that Mello uses the Death Note too, but we are unsure if he used it directly or got another Mafia member to write down names for him. Then it is ambiguous whether Misa Amane or Soricho Yagami go to Mu down to the technicalities of the rules. Firstly, Misa because she forfeited her Death Note and lost all memories of it. It isn't unreasonable to believe that this may have opted her back into going to heaven or hell. And then Soricho because he was considered the owner of a Death Note at one point and even made the Shinigami ideal, but never once killed someone using it. He did write Mello's first name into the Death Note, but never wrote his last name so Mello was not killed by his hand. Honestly, it would add another level of cruelty from Light in Soricho's already tragic death to be sent to Mu despite never taking a life. Next is to talk about the explanation given in the Death Note Relight series, an OVA created to abridge episodes from the anime into 2 feature-length films. Relight is framed as Ryuk telling the story of Kira to a new Shinigami interested in the human world, and it is heavily implied for this Shinigami to be Light reincarnated, essentially saying that the reason that Death Note users don't go to heaven or hell is because they turn into Shinigamis. Now, this is the part where I need to get extremely angry because I genuinely think this might be one of the worst ideas ever put to fiction. The entirety of Light's character is that he sees himself as a god, judging criminals because he believes that it will bring about a new world, a world where Kira is the only justice. The series obviously ending with the death of Light Yagami and forever painting Kira not in the image of a god, but instead one of an insane serial killer, nothing but a sociopathic narcissist wanting to be seen as special. Ending Light's character on the timeless, powerful message that no human can assume the role of God. So to go back on that idea and turn him into a Shinigami, a literal god of death, ruins the entire message about Light Yagami and his god complex. Next, for the last ending that can actually be seen as an 100% official end for the character, I get to talk about a game I have been dying for an excuse to talk about in a video, Death Note Killer Within. Death Note Killer Within is a 10-person social deduction game set in the Death Note universe. Essentially, it's just Among Us with a Death Note. I am completely in love with this game, and it is some of the most fun I've ever had with a multiplayer game. But you're probably asking, Pathetic Ivy, how can this game be a sequel to Death Note when it's a social deduction game about catching Kira? Let alone, how can it be a continuation for Light Yagami? Well, you see, dear viewer, this game is framed as a board game that Light and L are playing with each other in a random room we never see in the series, and that we players are pieces in said board game. The original assumption was that this was just a board game the two played while they were stuck with each other during the Yotsuba arc, but that gets thrown out the window when you take into account there are roles in the game representing Nier, Mello, and X-Kira. All characters that come into play after L's death. Nier and Mello could be explained away as L just adding those pieces to represent his surrogate brothers, which would be kinda cute, honestly, but X-Kira doesn't fit in a similar way as he represents Teru Mikami, which is someone Light didn't even know existed at the time, and even the name X-Kira is something that Nier uses when differentiating Light Yagami's use of the Death Note from Teru Mikami's. It doesn't take a genius then to believe that this is essentially the afterlife for Light and L, two people who used the Death Note. They now get to play a board game with each other until the end of time with no real stakes. A very fitting ending for the two characters and the strange bond they had with each other. Finally, I'll quickly go through two smaller ones that for different reasons aren't able to be seen as genuine endings, but I still feel deserve a spot in this video. Firstly, Light Yagami makes a cameo in a different anime called Death Parade, which, from what I can gather from a quick Wikipedia read, is an anime about a bar that people go to after death in between reincarnations. Light is able to be spotted on a camera showing one of the waiting rooms, implying that Death Parade and Death Note could be a shared universe. Last is a fan-made manga about an alternate universe where Light wins over Nier and lives out the rest of his days as Kira. I know I'm cheating a little with this entry, but it's got such a level of fame in the community that it felt weird not to include it. When Light dies, he is sent to the Shinigami world and is forced to personally experience every single death he ever caused with the Death Note before being sent to Mu. But, at the end, he makes one last deal with Ryuk to stop him from going to Mu and let him speak to the Shinigami King, Light wanting to gain his trust and attempt to overthrow him and become the Shinigami King with Ryuk as his right-hand man. Ryuk accepts, and it's just Light and Ryuk together once again with the same old crazy delusion of Light wanting to be God. Well, that's about it for this video. I don't have much in a way of a conclusion, but let me know in the comments which endings you liked for Light and which ones you didn't. This was honestly quite a fun video for me because it allowed me to once again ramble on about my favourite piece of fiction ever. And on that note, I've been Pathetic Ivy, and I bid you farewell.